Good morning, guys. I hope you all had a good Thanksgiving. I'm coming at you with the next excerpt of my first novel, Black and White Odyssey of Eden, and let's go for this. He had lost count hundreds of thousands of years ago. How many times had he tried and failed to change the reality that left him so desperately alone? This point was always the pinnacle of his failure. In the eons of struggle, he remembered almost nothing of his past. Only this moment, the finest of details, anywhere he could possibly find an advantage, any means by which he could exploit an opening. If God existed, how cruel he would be to put him through this torture, struggling to build his own fortress of hope upon such an ever-crumbling foundation of sand. How many lives had he sacrificed? How much blood had he shed? So many times, always to fail, always to endure the tragedy. The lives he sacrificed were none other than his own. Though he remembered, he cared minimally about his own life. There would be nothing left. He knew this. This was the last stand. If he could not break the cycle here, nothing would remain. Nothing. But stories. But even those stories would be erased if no being survived to tell them. He had no more energy for tears, no more time or patience, but they flowed nonetheless. The pain struck him at a fully conscious and subconscious level. Could he find it? He slowly knelt to the ground, sullen from the endless hours battling the monstrosity before him, letting out a silent moan. He made a futile attempt to nurse his arm back about his thigh, which itself was in shreds and bleeding profusely. It only caused him greater pain, but he had no choice. At this point, it mattered little. His mind was nearly mute to physical pain. In the hundreds of thousands of years searching, he had learned one thing. The only thing humanity will remember is how they felt. Facts and figures, details of the monotony of everyday life, in history, would become irrelevant and dissolve. This was his history. Only pain, only suffering, only failure. Almost only. As he kneeled there, eyes dilated, cracked and bloodied teeth gritting, he pulled his last two electronic pylons out of his pack and placed them softly into the damp, cold dirt. His mind was in unspeakable agony, erased from everything else. He clicked an invisible button along the side of each, causing them to produce a translucent, pale green sphere around the group of 20-odd downtrodden men, women, and children standing behind him. He remembered something here. What was it? What had he gleaned? His agony sharpened his focus, for he knew his focus would make it recede away in this unending struggle, slowly. If he could remember, he had seen this scene so many times before, painted in his mind's eye. He shook his head violently, training his attention to the south, on the machine. The horizon to the north, in the direction of the group of them, was painted a deep red with blazing fire. Those that could only be produced by the destruction of proud edifices of some of the greatest structures ever created by man. They gave way to a sky darkened with soot, blotting out the sun with hellish black clouds, clouds that bellowed loudly as they produced enormous columns of lightning in petrifying and rapid succession. The once mighty river behind them that had separated the isle from the mainland on which they stood had become viscous, blackened by a rain of burning particulate matter from the sky. A wrecked cruise ship was barely remaining afloat in the distance. Through the corner of his eye, the scientist saw something. To the west, a beam of light where the sun had managed to pierce an opening through the choking blanket of ruin above them. It shined mercifully upon the earth. The scientist turned to look at it. He closed his eyes and felt a sliver of happiness, an emotion with which he was no longer familiar. It had been so long. That's it for this section. I'll come at you with the next one later. Love y'all. Peace.